Okay, so welcome to our latest episode of Entrepreneur and Founder Series. And today it's my pleasure to bring Amber Main to this episode. And I have talked to many founders over the last couple of years for podcasts and other forums, and she has an absolutely fascinating journey. She is a serial entrepreneur. Um, she dropped out of school at some point, so we'll talk about that as well. And she is, overall, she has experienced so many different things at such a young age. It's just amazing. So, without wasting any more time, I will let Amber just say hello to the people watching and listening.
Thank you so much for that nice introduction. That's really nice to sort of hear you say that back to me as well. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Amber. So the first segment, so we are going to do this episode in three segments, and the first, segment that we're going to focus on is Amber's, early life. Amber, you were at at a college, or you're studying, and then you kind of made a big life changing decision. What was that? Can you walk us through, and our audience through, what was that big change in your life?
I think it wasn't really like a big change per se, but I think more situational and circumstantial for me at the time. So I was at high school and, just having some, I guess, family problems at home, and it wasn't the right time for me to be focusing on my education. It was more of like a drop out of school and work to survive kind of situation. And I'm not sure if anyone else can relate to that type of thing, but if you can, I know that it's really difficult. And you have a lot of pressure from external sources telling you, don't drop out, like you're never going to get a job, you're never going to be able to do what you want in life. And it's really stressful because, you know, I was 16 at the time and I had no idea what I was doing or, wanted to do really, but I was just trying to figure it out, and I didn't really have a lot of help to do that. So I think having these people telling me, don't drop out, do this instead, and they didn't really understand the situation properly as well. So it was really difficult to sort of have that from all angles and not really know what to do. So yeah, I dropped out of high school. I think at the time, yeah, it wasn't really a choice. It just happened. Um, yeah, and I kind of just fell into childcare, so early childhood education. I did a certificate three in early childhood, and I think within the year I was working in a childcare centre as an assistant. I really enjoyed it. I really loved working with the kids, and I think in a lot of ways for me it was like a bit of an escape from what I was going through at the time, just in my life as well, because it's so easy. It was so easy like to be with the kids and just immerse myself totally in their world and just be like with them and present with them and plan and educate them, and it was a lot of fun.
Okay, it just sounds good. So, I mean, at any point, did you feel that you might not have made the right decision, or was that something that never kind of
um
crossed your mind?
yeah, definitely, I think, but like I said, I think it wasn't really my choice. It was just something that I feel like happened, because I think when you're that young, you're not really like understanding the choices that you make very well, like, or in completeness. I remember sitting in high school in like the meeting office with my principal, and they were like, "Are you sure? Like, you want to do this?" And I didn't, to be honest with you, like I didn't want to do it, but I didn't know how else to like deal with the situation because like at home there was like a lot of stuff going on, but no one ever kind of bothered to ask me if there was other things going on for me. It was just kind of like, oh, you just want to drop out and be and do nothing with your life. Okay, that's your choice, kind of thing. And it's and it was just, yeah, it was a bit crap. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think having an open mind is something that can be the right answer. I mean, not everything is pre-planned, and everything can be controlled. At any age. I mean, you were really young at the time, but even for other people at any age, I mean, you can only um, manage, quote unquote, manage your, surrounding, so to speak, or events around you to some extent. But I think having a positive attitude, like you said, is easy for you to just immerse in working with the kids and everything else. I mean, that itself is in my opinion, a life lesson for people is don't be too despondent if you don't see what you think you should be in. So
Yeah, I think like it's very easy to say that when you look back at that in retrospect. When I look back at that time in my life from where I sit now, it's like obviously I have all like that knowledge and experience behind me now. So only now can I look back and go, all of those experiences and trials and tribulations that I went through, come together now, and it's a culmination of all of those things that make me who I am now. But I think when you're going through it at the time, it's really difficult to keep going and just be like, oh, it'll get better. But just know that if you do keep going, that there is a very good chance that it will get better.
sounds good. So from that, actually, we'll move to our second segment, which is kind of your transition to entrepreneurship. So here is Amber. She's, she's dropped out of school at this point. She's working with the kids. And then, the next, sort of pivot in your life happens where you kind of go from what you were doing and at the time into to being an entrepreneur, and you found a group, a networking group for young entrepreneurs. So talk us through, like, why, how it happened, what was some of your thought process at that time, and how was that journey?
Yeah, I think for me it's still weird to like call myself an entrepreneur because that term is something that I think for a long time I didn't really consider myself you know as an entrepreneur. It really like it just kind of happened. And then, people were like, oh, that's entrepreneurship and you have a business. And now I have two businesses and it's a thing. And I'm still getting used to it. So, I guess, yeah, for me, there was a lot of things that happened in between then and now. But, so I started my degree in biomedical science in 2019. It was a while ago now, actually. And so I was doing that for up until about 3 months ago, and I deferred my course to come over here and basically start doing fundraising for this startup, Like Minded. But before that, while I was studying, I was doing nannying and babysitting and just trying to keep working while I was studying to try and keep myself afloat. And I guess during the pandemic, I worked for a lot of essential workers, so like doctors and people kind of on the front line, and I saw how busy and crazy their lives were, and how much they really appreciated the support from me, being able to like look after their children and just help them around the house and things like that. So it was kind of a combination of those two things, like me wanting to not work because I knew that it wasn't sustainable for me to be working like two jobs and trying to study biomedical science full time. It was just too crazy. Anyone that has studied that degree knows that it's really difficult to do that and then work as well. So I look back and I don't even know how I even managed to do that for a while, but I did. But I knew that I couldn't do that forever. So I was trying to, on the side, come up with an idea of how I could, make money, but also have that just kind of running and not be in, putting a lot of time into that. Like you would go to like a day job, I suppose, and then come back and do your study, and it's just exhausting. Like you don't have any energy left to put into your actual study. So I was kind of thinking, okay, how can I do that without spending a lot of time working? And I came up with this idea of just running my own business. So that's, I suppose, what Ambient Home Group, where it came from. It started off as cleaning and nannying. So it actually just started off with me doing those two things by myself. And then it kind of progressed to me hiring a couple of people to help me. And yeah, it just now we've got, I think, almost 40 staff, a whole admin and management team, and we've doubled our revenue in the last 2 years. So that's pretty crazy to think about.
Y- Yeah, no. So we'll talk a little bit more about ambient home group in a little bit. So I mean, you mentioned that you were having two jobs and you were also doing pursuing a degree in biomedical, in and it was really tough, and but at the same time you know you were feeling that there was something that you needed to do, which kind of brought you to US, right? I mean, to States from Australia. And so I just want to kind of talk through that process a little bit. You have a business, and you're doing your degree, and then why that decision, and why at that point of pausing your education, and then
So that
buying a
really
ticket
came a
and coming
bit,
to US.
yeah, so that actually came a bit later. So Ambient Home Group had been running for like 2 years before that point. But I had an idea at the end of COVID that essentially was the basis of Like Minded. Um, it was just me, I suppose, having a lot of like feelings, and I think everyone can relate, of just being in lockdown for so long, and wanting to get out and meet people, see my friends, travel, go to events, and just like get my life back essentially, because 3 years. I mean, I'm from Australia, Melbourne. We had lockdowns on and off for about 3 years, which is pretty intense. And I think a lot of us kind of feel like we missed out on a really crucial part of our 20s. I'm 26, so I was 23 when the pandemic started, and on the other side of it, I'm nearly 27. So it feels like you've lost like the better part of your younger years in a lot of ways. So I just came up with that idea for Like Minded, as a culmination of all of those things. And it was really, I can't even describe, I think, in better words, I suppose, what that experience was like for me, because it wasn't like a one step process of like, yep, I'm deciding to do this now. It was, I had this idea at the end of COVID, and I had another business at the time, so I couldn't actually act on it. I just knew that it was a really good idea, and I was like, in the back of my head, I'll just keep it there. So it was one of those ideas that you just kind of sit on until it's the right time. But there is a right time, but you can't wait forever. I think with some things, the longer you wait, the bigger the risk is that someone else will think of it and do it. Or at least, there are people doing a similar aspect of it, not entirely similar in all ways, but you know that if that person makes that connection, that there's a possibility that they'll also make this connection, and then they'll be on the same track as you. So, and that just takes time for people to reach that conclusion. So you kind of sitting there going, okay, now or never. But yeah, I got to the point where I suppose with Ambient Home Group, we were running quite well, and I'd hired a general manager. My general manager, she does a great job, and I
Yeah,
think
so Amber, now kind of let's you brought it up. Let's talk about Ambient Home Group a little bit, which is your first startup, and kind of walk us through the early days, because that is something that founders always try to come up with a vision in their head, and it's never what it turns, what they think. But I think for you, from your experience, yeah, maybe the first, let's say, 3 months, what was it like? Were you looking for customers at the same time developing your website and such, and hiring, or like in what sequence? What were some of the major events during that first critical 3 or 4 months?
yeah, I think a lot of founders can probably relate to this, but the first 3 months or so are usually pretty hectic in terms of like you wearing all the different hats, and yeah, it's just doing everything at once, and all yourself, and just trying to make sure everything's working at the same time, and not necessarily knowing how to do everything, but just trying to manage it. I think so I actually started off as just me just cleaning houses, and it's pretty weird to think about now, but yeah, it was just me, and then I hired another lovely lady, and she was great. So everyone loved her, and then I added a few more people, and then I got to the point where I was getting like all these inquiries at the end of the day, and I was like struggling to keep up with the admin myself, because I would get home and I'd be exhausted, and then I'd be like, my day was essentially like 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., working, doing cleaning and babysitting. And then I'd get home, do admin until like maybe, I don't know, like 8 p.m. And then I'd try and study until like 10 or 11. So it was big days, because obviously at the time I was doing biomed as well. So it was a lot to kind of juggle at once. And I think that was the point where I kind of realized I can't keep doing everything myself. So I started looking for, I actually originally started off with a PA, I think, and um, we explored VAs and outsourcing from overseas, but that that ended interestingly a couple of times. So I think we ended up getting a PA that was based in Melbourne, and that worked really well. And that just kind of progressed from there. And then I hired another one, and then I suppose people kind of once they're part of the company and they really sort of see the vision, they're happier to stay on in different ways, and those roles just evolved. And my general manager actually now, she actually started as like a really awesome PA for me, and now she's my general manager. So, oops.
Okay, excellent. So, I mean, kind of seems to me, Amber, that you, the market or the customers kind of drove, you know, Ambient Home Group as you kind of grew chasing demand because the demand for your services was high enough where you could kind of didn't have to hire or invest ahead of time, so to speak. Would that be fair to say? You kind of just waited for customers to come in and then you hired?
Absolutely. There was a good like year where we were like just struggling to keep up with the demand. We had so many inquiries and just so many, yeah, just needs that we were trying to meet. And in terms of staffing, we were always trying to like hire more staff just so that we could keep up with it. So yeah, it was a bit like that for a while, and then it kind of evened out. So yeah, I think we found a good pattern now.
So did you have to do any fundraise for Ambient Home Group?
No, I mean that never even crossed my mind, because we were just, yeah, in that way we were always. I think when you find a good niche and you find a good market that's high in demand, you will never have to do that, unless it's a industry that you've got a lot of outgoings really early on. Where I suppose this business that I started had virtually no outgoings early on. We had none. So we were making money.
Excellent. Okay, so you're one of those lucky people who could bootstrap and
Yeah, and you can't do that for every business. No way. It's like
yeah.
very few businesses that, in terms of their layout and just the way that they are, that you can bootstrap them. So I think a lot of businesses. I think you'll know if your business is that kind of business, because you won't have to be putting money into the business yourself straight away. That came a lot later for me, and that actually only came in the last 6 months, because then we started like automating all of our back end, and I had to obviously pay for that kind of a thing. So
So I mean, in terms of like next, are you able to project how your services will grow, or do you have some visibility into that?
yeah, for sure. So essentially, Ambient Home Group's business model centers on giving time back to the client. So we're an all in one stop shop for home services. So anything that you can think of that gives people time back in the home, that's what we do. So yeah, like I said, it started off with cleaning, and childcare, so nannying and babysitting. Um, we've also launched our virtual assistance program, Um, we will be launching at the end of this year our chef made home delivered meals. So that is something I'm looking forward to. What else? Yeah, we do gardening, we do window cleaning. Yeah, all of our services are listed on our website, so take a look if you've got a minute. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things on there at the moment. Dog walking as well is another one that we do. And we've got a partnership with Lisa Loves Charlie, which is a florist based in Melbourne, and they do like flower add-ons for their cleans and things like that. So like if you get like a deep clean, they can you can order a bunch of flowers for like the finishing touch. Yeah.
So, did you kind of look at, like, some of the other similar types of service providers, and like Angie's List, or Craigslist? I mean,
I've only just recently heard about Angie's List because I think they're American.
yes, I believe
Yeah,
so. I am
I
not
only just heard
100%
about
sure,
them.
but
To be honest
um,
with you, I didn't do a whole lot of market research, and maybe that's not the best approach, but I think that's just the way that it happened. I knew there were obviously like a lot of cleaning companies out there, but I think our point of difference was that we weren't focusing on the one thing. We were focusing on our goal, which was, giving people their time back. And I think when you think about things in the broader sense and have that goal really clear in your mind, you come up with different ideas and you come up with different, you know, things that you can add on to that. And it's not just about this one thing that you're trying to do as a service. It's more about this broader vision of what you're trying to achieve.
fair enough. So, I mean, it's as you said. I mean, doing market research is definitely a great thing to do, but not necessarily
I'm a bad
the.
entrepreneur.
No, it's
I did it
man, it's
wrong.
just.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I think a lot of people, obviously it's a great thing to do, but at the same time, it doesn't guarantee success, because, a lot
I
of times
definitely recommend doing market research. Like I think my business was one that obviously, like I said, it just kind of took off, and I think when when it's working, I think you don't need to kind of go and do like a whole lot of. I think that stuff came a lot later for us when we were trying to work out like what's our points of difference, what's our unique selling points, and obviously our unique selling point is that we're everything in all in one place, and we're giving people their time back into their day because our general clientele are people who are quite busy and have families and are working a lot. So yeah, that we found out that a little bit later, I suppose, and that it kind of just evolved as we went.
Okay. So, in terms of, you obviously have this, great business going on, and then, you think of some other idea. I mean, so what was it that you were missing with the running? I mean, running a business, especially a growing business like you describe, is such a big task as a CEO itself. But then what was kind of, you felt that you didn't have in some way, that kind of brought you to, oh, let's think of another one?
Um, that's a hard question, I think, for me because that's just part of my personality. I think I always tend to, my mind will wander when oh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
Oh,
Hey.
your video just disappeared.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so yeah, my mind tends to wander, I think, when I'm not completely occupied. I think, like I was saying before, we grew Ambient to a point where I didn't need to be so hands-on anymore. Like obviously I had Grace, who was my general manager, and everything was going pretty well. And I think it was holidays for me at uni, and I just had a little bit too much free time on my hands, and obviously was working on the business and stuff in terms of more like business development and giving my input and ideas. But I think, yeah, I don't know, if I'm not like completely occupied, my mind just goes, okay, what's next or what else? So I think that's actually what happened is my mind kind of wandered back to that time when I had that idea like a couple of years back. And I started thinking about it a little bit more, and I was kind of thinking to myself, like, why didn't I do anything with that? And then I started thinking about it a whole lot more because I was like, this is actually a good idea. And then it was just kind of evolving in my head as I was thinking about it, and then just kind of mapping out in my head like what the business model actually could be, and if it was viable, if it would actually kind of work out. And the weird part is for me, like, I think I had mapped it out entirely in my head, not word for word, detail to detail, but the general sense of it is exactly how it has gone. And now that we've mapped it out and put it on paper, and it's exactly how I imagined it would be, which is quite strange. Yeah, so I just kind of started thinking about that a lot more, and um, started going to networking events a lot more because I wanted to meet people, and that's something that I wasn't kind of focusing on at the time a lot. Um, and that gave me the opportunity to sort of meet new people that some of them actually are now on my team, which is really cool, for like minded. So, yeah, I met some really cool key players and valuable team members through that. Um, yeah, I think, and obviously, like minded is still kind of growing and evolving, and we're still early stage, but yeah, it's very exciting.
You mentioned that you had too much free time on your hands, and kind of pulling on that thread when you're free time and you're not thinking of your next startup. What is it that you do to take keep yourself occupied, but relax, or like your hobbies and things of that kind?
Okay, so when I do have more free time, those are the types of things I tend to do. Is I tend to think like, what's next? But I suppose on the rare occasion that I'm not doing that, if I'm actually just wanting to do something else, which is not very often. I think in between things is probably when you'll find me more likely to be doing just random things. I love watching Grey's Anatomy, obviously, because medicine and Grey's Anatomy is awesome. I like to paint actually. I oil paint. And I'm learning piano, and I love languages as well. I was actually learning Spanish during lockdown. I think I had at one point a 365-day streak on Duolingo for Spanish.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, it's just I did Spanish lessons in lockdown, and I think until they closed that down, I did that. What else? Yeah, I like to read anything like science fiction or like what biographies. Um, yeah, that's everything I can think of at the top of my head. Like I like to go out with my friends, and I'm into like it's weird. I'm into like trance music. I think a lot of people don't get they wouldn't kind of put that together with me, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. You have a lot of varied interest. I mean, including like in your professional life. So I mean, in terms of we talk about your you know be your role, or as an educator, as working through the it was your first startup and all of that, and doing biomedical engineering degree, pursuing that. I mean, how do you see yourself in 5 years? I mean, what do you see
Oh
for
God.
Amber Main 5 years or 10 years down the road, and what is it that you would like to accomplish?
See, that question always gets me because I always ask that to other people, and I'm always interested to hear what other people say. But I think because of the last 6 months, like how quickly everything has gone with like-minded, when I when I think about that question for myself now, I don't know the answer. Um, I never pictured myself being in this position, like fundraising in America. I never pictured myself doing this in a million years. Like it's so surreal to me still. So when I picture myself in 5 years' time, I can't see. I don't know the answer. I don't know because it seems so like. far fetched to think that I would be even further along or like, doing something else. Like I can't even picture my life in 1 month away. Like that is how, just crazily my life has turned upside down. I can't even picture what it will be like in 2 weeks' time. It's just
Okay.
so quickly evolving, so rapidly. I can't keep up with my own life.
So you're kind of, driven more by the tactical in terms of having to manage, juggle businesses and everything else. It
I
seems to
really
me.
hope that my life still looks like this. Like there are days that I'm like, "Oh my god, this is way too hectic for me." But most of the time, like I'm really enjoying it, and I think I would be pretty disappointed if my life didn't look like this in some way, at least in, 2 years, 5 years time. I would, like to be in a position, I suppose, where like I would love to inspire people who have been through similar experiences to me. If I can help, even a few people just believe in themselves, because I think for so long I didn't. I didn't believe that I could do all those things that I have done. And I think it's pretty weird looking back and seeing that I have done that. And, I have had help along the way. I've had a lot of help with certain things, but a lot of it I did by myself. And I think I never really believed that I could do it until I did it. So,
So, as we kind of wrap up the session here, any advice for, especially for, young women entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs, um, that you would like to share?
any advice? I think always listen to your internal compass. If something is telling you that the situation is wrong or you don't agree with someone, listen to yourself. Listen to your gut. Listen to your intuition every time.
Good advice. Good advice. So that actually brings us to the end of the session. I mean, again, Amber, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us and the audience. And I think there's a lot of nice, pearls of wisdom is the cliche they use, but a nice, your take on life that you shared with everyone. So thank you once again, and best of luck, and with everything, and hopefully we'll get to see Ember running $1 billion company. That is your goal in a few years.
My
And
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
yeah, thank you, Ember.